Welcome to our Tuesday discussion today with Johanna Bär, and it's a great pleasure to welcome Johanna. She is known to some of us because she was a member of the very first cohort of our environmental studies certificate students. My name is Christoph Mauch. I'm the director of the Rachel Carson Center, and I'm moderating this event on Tuesdays together with my colleague Gisa Lüdecke, the director of graduate programs. Wonderful to have you here, Johanna. I remember Johanna was studying German and theology. She got a master in theology. She studied, got the state exam, I think, but decided not to become a teacher, not to be a theologian, not to be a German teacher. She was always more interested in social and ecological questions. And she did her master thesis, I think, in theology on the nunnery of Schledorf, which is close to Munich, south of Munich. And they had a social ecological initiative there. That's what she focused on. And she did her project for the environmental studies certificate program with us on a farm on an eco farm in France, because her internship during her studies was in France. And I think that shaped her. When I talked to her a couple of days ago, she said, well, she would have loved to just focus on the environmental program much more than German and theology. And I was very happy to hear that. So after she finished, she went on to applied, I think, proactively for a job at the Schweizfurt Foundation, a foundation in Munich that focuses on sustainable food economy, on eco-agriculture, and similar topics, animal welfare, for instance. And within that foundation, which was headed at the time by Professor Gottwald, an environmental ethicist and also a theologian, she focused on ethical issues in part because she was his assistant, Professor Gottwald's assistant. But at one point, she started a new project in 2017, which had to do with politics. And that, and I won't tell you more because I'm sure that she will tell us a little bit about that project. She became the manager of that project, and then became the head or the manager of the foundation that dealt with the very issue of that project. And it's called, now the foundation is called Stiftung für enkeltaugliche Landwirtschaft. Bit of a strange term, enkeltauglich, but well, when you think about it, it's a nice term. Enkeltauglich means agriculture that is good for future generations, for sustainable agriculture. So please join me in welcoming Johanna Bär to our session.
Thank you so much, Christoph. Can you hear me? It's okay like this? Okay. So hello, and thank you for the kind introduction. So I have a small presentation for you. Thank you, Gisa, for sharing. So you see there the title of my association is called Bündnis für eine enkeltaugliche Landwirtschaft. The translation is really difficult for us in English. It's a very German term, enkeltauglich. It means, yeah, suitable for grandchildren and future generations. So I would like to apologize first for my English because we are a German association and I'm not used to speak English, but I will try my best. So on the next slide, you see our intention, our objective. We are an association of, on the one hand side, of organic companies, most of them pioneers of organic farming and production. And the other members are NGOs, non-governmental organizations. And our target is to preserve the natural resources of the future generations or to rebuild them when they're destroyed. And we try to do this based on scientific knowledge and in dialogue with all relevant stakeholders. So that's where who we are and what's our target. On the next slide, you see some of our members. We have about 60 very well-known organic companies in Germany. Perhaps you see them when you go to the organic supermarket, like Rapunzel is the most well-known company, I think, or Völkel, when you like German beer, so you can test it there. And we have the members that are NGOs like the Schweizfurt Foundation that Christoph mentioned, and a citizen initiative called Landwende, and also the European Professional Beekeeper Association. And I think it's really something special to have this, this mixture, this cocktail of NGOs on the one hand side who have a lot of knowledge of political and ecological processes, and to have on the other side the companies who bring in, on the one side, money, you have to say this, and on the other side, they also bring in all their customers, all the consumers who go to the supermarkets, and so we can have another place where we can give information to people over these companies. So it's something really special, and I think it's. I just want to present what we're doing now, and for later I have some questions where I hope you can give me some help for some questions that we always try to answer. So on the next slide, I can present you our 3 different areas of action, we call them. The one is research. We did a big study of pesticides in ambient air in Germany. And we have also a huge network with other scientists and experts and NGOs all about the subject of pesticides. You see on the right, you see also our small logo with the bee, and that's our campaign. So the campaign is called Pesticide No Thank You. Let's see the next area we work on, and we try to mix, but not to mix always the area. So in the research area, we try to be very scientific, objective, independent. And in our campaigning area, we use another language, like it's more like action, information, and awareness raising of consumers. We use social media, public relations, and also political lobbying for getting to our aim for an agriculture suitable for grandchildren and without pesticides. And the third area is to do this in dialogue with all stakeholders of the value chain. So there we are very open-minded and inviting. We try to really to talk with all people who are involved in agriculture. Because you are a scientific institute, I tried on the next slide just to give you an overview now to our studies. And the first study in the first beginning of our association was the study Urinale in 2015. I think you have to click, thank you. The Urinale was the first research about pesticide residues in humans. And we've tested over 2,000 persons, and the really shocking fact is that 99.6% of all persons had glyphosate in their urine. And because there is little difference between people who eat organically and those who do not, we had the strong suspicion that glyphosate and other pesticides are not absorbed through food or water, but via air. So we always inhalate, I think it's a word, pesticides. And on the next slide, we tried to get einen Beweis. You have to help me sometimes, Christoph.
To prove you tried.
To prove our suspicion. And so we did one study in 2018 to prove that pesticides are transported via air, and we used tree barks and analyzed them because there the air is like sticking to the air with the pesticides are like sticking in the tree bark. And so the suspicion becomes stronger with the results from the study in 2018. And so we did a large study in 2019 with over 160 sites, where we had 4 methods of sampling. So one of them was, for example, bee bread from honeybees. Others were more technical, like a passive sampler that was really developed for the study. And so we had different methods and a lot of sites to have a very strong study where you could really have reliable results. On the next slide, you see that our study was published last year in autumn. And the study's name is Pesticides and Pesticide-Related Products in Ambient Air in Germany. And we were really lucky because you see on the right side the Ministry of Environment in Germany, and she came to our press conference and took the study and said, "Thank you so much for doing this work because it's so important. We do not have any data about pesticides in the air." And for us, it was really good because the press was there, and so they could say that the minister said that our results are really alarming. On the next slide, you see that's just one part of our results, but you can see Germany, and you see on these columns, they represent how many pesticides we found on one site. In the north, there's more agriculture, there's more wind and more, so you see there were more pesticides in the north, but also in the south. And I have one on the next slide, just the results, the main results of our study. And I will just go through it. So you will find everywhere in Germany, you will find pesticides in the air. In all the air that you're inhalating, you will have pesticides, and it's most unlikely that there's no sites without. So glyphosate was very widespread. It was found in 100% of 2 of our methods, and but we did not only found glyphosate, but most of the time we found a cocktail of different pesticides on one site. So we always have on 75% of all sites, we find 34 pesticides on one site. I think the most of them, the 35 were found in a vineyard because there are pesticides, they were of use in vineyards. And 30% of all pesticides are that we found are no longer approved or have never been approved. So that's a large number of pesticides that were formerly approved and persist in the environment, and they are also in the air now. And pesticides were also found in our sampling sites in national parks, where we really do not have any any action of bringing out pesticides, and also near organic fields. The problem is that the impact of these pesticides in the air on human beings is almost unknown. There are no studies, there's no research so far, because in the approval of the pesticides, the European Union always says, oh, this long-range distance transport is not important because pesticides stay where they are, but they do not. So the long-range transport of pesticides is also a huge problem for organic farming producers, because when residues are found in their harvest, sometimes they have to, the whole harvest, you have to, is destroyed, or it has another value and not the organic value anymore. So that were the results. On the next slide, you see now our political demands that we have after publishing this study, and that we can also, so we have the scientific background, and now we try to get the political side to action. And the first one is that we try to reform the European Union approval procedure. That's the most important, that the approval procedure is reformed, and that this long-range transport that we proved with our study, that this proof has to be one of the methods of the approval procedure. And they always said for all the substances that this long-range transport is not important, but if they really would do our research, and if they really know the problem, they have to change something in the approval procedure. The second one is that we want that in Germany there is an air monitoring of pesticides, as we did it, and we think that the German government has to do it every year to know what problems we have, which pesticides are in the air, and to have a background for their political decisions. The third one is that we like to have a pesticide tax, so the pesticides get more expensive. And with this procedure, in other countries like in Denmark, we've seen that the use of pesticides could be reduced about 50%, and that we want to try in Germany too. And with the outcome of this tax, we could compensate the organic farmers who have damages of these long-range transport of these problems with pesticides that transport via air. Our fourth and the fifth demand is that we demand a ban of all synthetic chemical pesticides till 2035, and they should begin with the pesticides that were most widely spread in our study, because these are the most dangerous, they are most widespread, they are the biggest problem. So that's the demands. And now on the next slide, I try to stay in the 10 minutes Christoph gave me for my presentation. I have some questions for you. That's the challenges which we meet every day, and that's some questions that are not easy to be answered, I think. So we try to reach people with this fact that pesticides are in the air that they are inhalating, and we try to face them with this, but it's not easy. It's really not easy to reach people, even if you try via social media, via leaflets in the organic supermarkets. But that's our biggest problem, to reach people. And if you have some ideas, or if we could discuss this problem, that would be very helpful. If you have new ideas, or perhaps a new method, or yeah, that's one question. The other one is, because we are an association also of companies, there's always a problem about, oh, you only do advertising for your own company. And part of it, it's right that some of our campaign is advertising for organic companies, but on the other side, it's really our political, I don't know how to say, our really political, we want really to change something. So I'm not a member of a company, I'm just of the whole association, and I try to make people clear that we need another form of agriculture. And that's sometimes really difficult to say we're companies, but we're acting not like companies. They give us a lot of money to do this campaign. This is always the question: how can we avoid making advertising? But staying for our political thoughts. So, and now the third question is a very private one, but I think it's also an example for how our society works. I have a neighbor, and in fact, the neighbor had the garden around the house, and he uses pesticides. And I was absolutely shocked, but in fact, I'm paying my rent to him, though the house is owned by my neighbors. And so I really do have a problem to resist and to say, oh no, you can't do this. But in fact, I think it's a question also to you. What can we do when these things happen around us? So perhaps you know also some people who are working in agriculture, perhaps not in organic farming. So how can we really try to speak with people who are near to us, but they are not near in our thought about this problem? And so this is my third question. And the fourth, that in fact the question that we're working, I think, about for another 10, 20, 30 years is just how will we come to an agriculture suitable for grandchildren with and in our society? So I think that's some big questions, perhaps some small questions, but I would like to have your answers and other questions. Yeah. So thank you very much for your attention. Yeah, I have a last slide for some people now say, oh no, that's really shocking that pesticides are in our air and we don't know what to do. And so there is something you can do. It's not a big action, but it's a small one. There is a European Citizens Initiative, Safe Bees and Farmers, and you can sign the initiative if you haven't done yet. We support the initiative because they have the same target of a ban of synthetic chemical pesticides and to support farmers in their transition towards agroecology. So you can do something if you like.
Wonderful, Johanna. Thank you so much for a great presentation.